Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Chapter 51. Jason's favorite people are those who work in technology. No matter where in the world it is. Most academic people are very naive. Dr. Connors is one of the best. Jason was just a little fooled. Dr. Connors immediately made up his mind to change jobs from Osborne Industries to work for Wayne Group. After talking about it, Dr. Connors is also very efficient. Norman Osborne, the old fox. He had long since refused to invest himself in Dr. Connors' research that was of no use to him. It's just that the scene was saved. Just let Dr. Connors go. 2 days of work. Dr. Connors took care of the family affairs and came directly to Gotham. Jason received him warmly and then took him to see the laboratory. Dr. Connors, this is your laboratory. Jason pointed to the entire building in front of him and said to Dr. Connors, Mr. Jason, which floor is my laboratory on? Dr. Connors obviously does not have a clear understanding of the Wayne family's wealth. He also cautiously asked Jason which floor his laboratory was on. There is no floor, this building is all. Jason shook his head. After Jason traveled through time, inheriting the fine tradition of Bruce Wayne, good at solving problems at their root cause. How can you buy one floor when buying a laboratory? You must buy it directly. Dr. Connors was stunned when he heard this. Are they all in this building? Yes, this building is a biological laboratory. You will be the supervisor here from now on. Jason stood up on tiptoes and patted Connors on the shoulder. After getting the confirmed news from Jason, Connors felt as if he was in a dream. When he was in the Osborne group, where had he ever enjoyed such treatment? Although he has a laboratory in the Osborne group, it is nothing in the Osborne group. This laboratory is not the largest either. Now comes Wayne Group. Jason gave him such a big building. This kind of trust moved him very much. Mr. Jason. Okay, stop talking about Dr. Connors, let's go in and take a look. We also want to introduce relevant information to you. Jason said something and took Connors in directly. The building has 8 floors. The biosafety level has reached P4 level. It is a laboratory with the highest biosafety level in the world. There are only 56 such laboratories recorded in the world. Most of the time, such laboratories are used to study highly contagious viruses. Have a laboratory like this. Probably the dream of every biologist in the world. At the moment, there are already many experimenters in the laboratory. They are all researchers seconded by the Wayne Group to do basic work. Take a look around the laboratory. Connors was increasingly surprised. Whether it was equipment, personnel, or various security measures, everything exceeded his expectations. Okay, Dr. Connors, we've finished looking at the lab, it's time for us to look at the things you care about. Jason smiled, which made Connors blush a little. During the visit just now, Connors had been looking at Extremis experimental site. It seems that the obsession with broken limb rebirth is very deep. When Connors saw Jason, he found out and no longer tried to hide it. Said directly, Mr. Jason, has Wayne Group's drug begun human testing? Yes, it has entered the human trial stage. Jason nodded. Although Extremis technology is after system upgrade. But he was still worried. Necessary experiments are still very necessary. Hearing this, Connors' eyes flashed with excitement. Medical technology is different from other technologies. After researching it, it needs to go through a very long clinical trial phase. In fact, this period of time is even longer than the development time of drugs. One of the very important reasons is human trials. Before conducting human experiments, very complex testing is required. Only after all experimental data can meet the standards can the process of human trials begin. So, once a drug enters the human trial stage, basically, this drug can be declared a success. Connors was naturally very happy about this. Mr. Jason, I have a cruel remark. Dr. Connors, please say, if you can, I will be satisfied. Although Jason had some guesses, he still said with a smile. Can I join Wayne Group's human trials? Connors said very carefully. Sure enough. Jason sighed in his mind. It is hard for ordinary people to imagine how difficult it must be for a disabled person. Dr. Connors, can't you just wait a moment? Well. Dr. Connors sighed. Mr. Jason, you can't even imagine the life I'm living now. Not only is it inconvenient to do experiments, but it will also be looked down upon by others. I don't want to live in this kind of life at all. Connors looked at Jason with a very serious tone. Okay, Dr. Connors, I agree to your participation in Wayne Group's human trials. But Dr. Connors, you must pay attention and report to us in time if there are any problems. Jason reminded him. The laboratory has initially determined the function of extremis. Although its original recovery speed and lethality have been greatly weakened. But 967 has improved stability a lot. There will no longer be a situation where it explodes at every turn. There shouldn't be any big issues with Connor's safety. However, Connors didn't know this. He saw Jason care so much about him. The gratitude on his face was beyond words. Don't worry, Mr. Jason, I won't delay my work. If I have time, I can definitely start looking at relevant information. It will not delay the research process. Jason was very happy when he heard this. But he still pretended to cough and said, Dr. Connors, there is absolutely no need. I will wait until you fully recover to conduct research. Not in a hurry. That's what he said. Jason didn't think so. He stopped it anyway. If Dr. Connors showed his subjective initiative and researched the information himself, then it has nothing to do with him. Naturally, the words in my heart cannot be spoken. After receiving another wave of gratitude from Dr. Connors, Jason took Dr. Connors to the experimental group. He was directly given huge amounts of permission. His experimental quota was approved. Once extremis is manufactured, Dr. Connors will be ready to receive the injection. Get it all sorted. Jason just said goodbye to Dr. Connors. Returned to his laboratory again. Chapter 52. After settling in Dr. Connors, Jason has finally settled a major matter in his heart. He was able to return to scientific work again. The white coat he met in the desert contributed a lot to him. One is a variant of extremis. The other is a single-dimensional energy manipulator. It is what White Coat calls the Supreme Lord of the Rings. This is not the ring from Lord of the Rings. Rather, it is a high-tech device disguised as a ring. Ability is the ability to manipulate an energy, causing the temperature to drop sharply. Eventually it can even reach a point close to absolute zero. In physics, this is almost impossible to achieve. What causes this incredible phenomenon is these energies from sub-dimensions. The universe does not exist in one place. In the gap between this mixed universe of Marvel and DC, there exists the sub-dimensional world of the Emperor. These worlds are made of a single energy. Most organisms cannot survive in it. Moreover, the energy in the sub-dimensional world has a single nature and can interfere with the physical constants of the main material world. A very magical effect is achieved. This kind of energy also has another name, calendar. The technology provided by the system is to use machines to absorb sub-dimensional energy to achieve the same effect as magic. Whenever Jason sees this kind of technology, he feels amazed. It turns out that technology can really reach this level. Skynet, create a new project folder. The confidentiality level is top secret. Sub-dimensional energy manipulation device. Ordering materials from a group controlled by Wayne Group. Preparing to build a small atomic collider. After Jason finished speaking, he stopped talking. The technical content contained in this technology far exceeds that of human beings. Many of the materials and elements required are not available on Earth. You can only rely on Jason to make it yourself. This process is almost the same as the process of upgrading Iron Man's chest reactor. Howard Stark by researching the Tesseract. A new fusion element was designed. Tony Stark to make it. Directly in the basement of the house, a small atomic collider was built. By hitting the core of the material with a beam of high-energy particles. To change the basic properties of the material. Get a new element. The same goes for the process Jason wants to undertake. It's a pity that we can't borrow the Large Particle Collider. Jason shook his head sadly. The scientific research tasks of the Large Atomic Collider built in Western Europe, which is tens of kilometers long, have been scheduled for decades. Even the powerful Wayne family would not be able to jump in line. Moreover, using a large atomic collider is not conducive to confidentiality. He could only settle for the next best thing and build a small collider himself. Barely usable. Skynet builds a three-dimensional model. Preparing a simulated space folding device. Jason coughed and said. The sub-dimensional energy manipulation device is a very large device. in order to be able to mobilize sub-dimensional energy from the main universe. There are many auxiliary devices inside the device to break through the limitations of Wong universe. Naturally, the size of the instrument has also become very large. I want to reduce such a large ring to file size that can be worn on my finger. You need to use the space folding device. The technological content of this device is also very high. The principle is to use a machine to generate a large gravitational field and remember the gravitational distortion to manipulate space. The technical principles are almost magical. If the instrument is built large enough, it can even create the ultimate weapon, the Gravity Dawn. A weapon capable of controlling the trajectory of external planets on Earth is a weapon capable of destroying stars. Definitely want to do this. The resources needed cannot be achieved by relying on the Earth alone, and he can't do it yet. After thinking about it, Kunsen said, Skynet, how is the mining base on Mars? As early as when the steel armor was developed, Jason sent his own fully automated mining team to Mars. It is also equipped with a sub-body program of Skynet to control the mining behavior of the base. Master, according to the communication 3 days ago, the base has begun preliminary operations. Skynet Shen Shengwei reports. Jason nodded when he heard this. After all, the resources on Earth are limited. As he masters more and more technology, he naturally needs more and more resources. It is difficult to meet his requirements with the resources on Earth alone. Jason had already prepared for a rainy day and was eyeing the resources in the universe. And a planet with a thin atmosphere. It is very likely that some rare minerals from the universe will appear. He will make a lot of money after that time. As for the question of whether it can sail in the universe, that's too simple. SHIELD's Quinjet can be modified for space navigation, so why can't his steel suit? It's just that without a jump engine, he can't carry out long-distance interstellar navigation. Traveling within the solar system is no problem at all. Prepare to renovate the factory and start preparations for manufacturing. Buy several farms in the southern suburbs of Gotham and prepare to build large factories. Quote. Jason once again asks Skynet to give him a reminder. Science and technology are a system. If you want to study something, you need the entire industrial system to work together. It's like saying that he was from his previous life. In top laboratories, the world's top equipment can be manufactured. But technology still lags behind the world powers. Why? It is because the entire industrial system is backward. Manufacturing things can only rely on fate, and yield and accuracy are both issues. The same goes for Jason's desire to build equipment. A sub-dimensional energy manipulator has nearly tens of millions of parts. It is more complex than the most complex space shuttle in the world today. There is no support from an industrial system. There was no way he could build such a device. Needless to say, he will also create other new technologies in the future. Alas, it's a pity that technology still can't reach it. It would be great if we had a planet forge, but now we can only make do with a 10,000-ton casting press. When he said this, King Qian, Jason's face was full of regret. The chronology of technology is really serious. This kind of high-end technology directly provided is very difficult to restore. It's like you gave a primitive person a mobile phone and asked them to make it. This is simply impossible, although he is now manufacturing equipment in front of him. But that's just make do. The quality is not great. It needs to be replaced after a few uses. However, the industrial system on Earth limits his technological development. He had no choice but to make do with it. Sighed. Jason designed all the projects. Enter all the data information into Skynet's database. Then use Skynet's computing power to build the model. Even, Jason based on his own understanding. Improvements have been made to these things. The final draft was completed very quickly. You only need to make the core in the laboratory. You can use factory-assembled instruments. Chapter 53. Gravity and space are very closely related. We can even say, gravity occurs, in part, because of the curvature of space. Space fluid material forms a momentum flux gradient due to its velocity gradient in a certain direction. Momentum flux gradient energy generates potential pressure energy. Potential pressure energy is the fundamental reason for the formation of gravity. On the contrary, if gravity is created, space will be disturbed to some extent, thereby realizing the folding and passage of space. Jason was reading information in the laboratory. The old man Fox ran to his laboratory again. Jason, what are you studying? Wormhole or jump drive? Fox's old face was full of excitement. As Chief Technology Officer of Wayne Group, although he may not be able to research this technology, he still has a vision. He only read part of the information and realized that what Jason was studying was related to space. When did you come in? Jason put down the information in his hand and asked in surprise. When you were reading the information just now. And I've been coming in for a long time, Fox said with a lewd smile. Jason couldn't help but touch his forehead. He finally knew how Tony Stark felt. Why did he directly change the password for the 130 door of the laboratory later? Just because there are too many idle people like this and they always like to disturb other people's research. Tell me, Mr. Fox, what do you want to do? Jason said helplessly. I just want to learn a little bit of technique. What are you studying? Fox asked, licking an old face. Jason stroked his forehead helplessly. This old man is so shameless. If not, look at Fox as the chief technical director of Wayne Group. For having made so many contributions to his family. He had already controlled the armor and thrown him out. He sighed and spoke. I'm studying gravity and want to interfere with space from the indoor level. Create some kind of small space folding device. Hearing this, Fox's eyes lit up. Graviton. That's right. Jason nodded. There are 4 basic forces in the universe: strong interaction, weak interaction, electromagnetic force and gravity. The first 3 forces have been unified by the Standard Model into one generation mechanism, which is the transmission of messenger particles between matter particles. Existing scientific theories prove that fermions constitute matter, bosons transmit information, and strong interaction means the exchange of gluons between quarks. The weak interaction is the exchange of W and Z bosons between atoms. The electromagnetic force is the exchange of photons between matter. These 3 forces are caused by the exchange of material particles with messenger particles. So based on this basis, scientists on Earth hypothesize that the creation of gravity is also based on this theory. And the particles that can produce gravity are called gravitons. Unfortunately, the existence of such particles has not been proven on Earth. But in Jason's eyes, this is indeed confirmed. The graviton is not actually a particle, but a middle string. According to string theory, the graviton is a closed string with no rest mass and a self-selected value of 2. According to human technology, such strings cannot yet be observed. That's why some people say gravity is actually the ultimate high-latitude energy. It is a force that leaks from high latitudes to low latitudes. Therefore, the real difficulty of this technology is how to generate gravitons. Fox didn't know much, but he understood the significance of gravitons. Did you observe gravitons? Fox said in shock. Well, it should be considered an observation. Jason nodded and said, how did you do that? Fox looked at Jason with burning eyes. Curiosity for knowledge slowly filled his eyes. Nothing. Just expanded string theory. Jason said lightly. That expression made Fox want to hit someone. Fox felt very uncomfortable when he saw Jason talking so easily. The expression on his face was as if he had eaten a dead fly. Did you know this was a Nobel Prize-winning CFBG achievement? Jason curled his lips when he heard this. Nobel Prize. This thing has no use in the Marvel world. Hydra leaders like Alexander Pierce can win Nobel Prizes. What's even more ridiculous is that he refused. How can this Nobel Prize be fair? Jason wasn't even interested. Nobel Prize, forget it. I'm going. Those old men should be sad. Jason said nonchalantly. Fox stopped, his heart howling. Even though he was quite old, he still couldn't bear it. The gap between people is really too big. He wasn't even nominated for a Nobel Prize, and no one even bothered to win this award. It took a long time to calm down my emotions. Fox spoke again. What new understanding do you have of string theory? Jason glanced at Fox and said, string theory is a very basic burst theory. String theory believes that the world is not composed of various elementary particles, but a very tiny string. It is the different vibrations and movements of this string that produce various basic particles. But we can't observe strings, so humans think string theory is a theory. But I've made a new discovery. Space has 3 expanded dimensions, namely length, width, and height, and 6 curled dimensions, curled up on the space of the plank length. Strings are wrapped around or attached to such spatial dimensions, vibrating in all directions. According to the different dimensions of the curled dimension, the strings have different lengths and shapes, which produce various winding energy and vibration energy. Thus, point-like particles and forces of various properties are formed, and the particles synthesize different substances. There are gravitons in this. We just simulate the string through the machine. You can generate gravity through the compilation of different frequencies and vibrations. Jason said this, paused, and looked at Fox. This is incredible. Fox digested it for a long time before speaking. Your research is even comparable to that of Einstein. I'm afraid the only living scientist who can compare with you is Dr. Bruce Banner. Fox shook his head and said, okay. Jason nodded calmly. He really couldn't compare to these two. Einstein, that is a mountain that physicists cannot climb. Bruce Banner is the first person in the field of modern physical theory research. A power that can be hung on the wall and admired while it is alive. Although it seems that Bruce Banner failed to develop anything great. But in fact, current physics is based on the theories he studied. And this guy has 7 PhDs. Geniuses like Tony Stark only have 2 PhDs. He was just relying on the system. It's really incomparable. Chapter 54. All the engineering wonders of the world. The theoretical foundation must be prepared in advance. Want to create a string? First we need to understand what a string is. A string is a kind of energy, a linear amount of energy that can vibrate at a fixed frequency. This energy creates various elementary particles through vibrations. Jason has long mastered the essence of string theory. Once the machine was in place, he directly built the space folding device. By generating gravity through gravitons, the existence of space is indirectly controlled to achieve the folding effect. It took nearly half a month of effort. The instruments he needed were produced by Skynet. The resources consumed are astronomical. If it weren't for the Martian mining mecha coming back, I'm afraid Wayne Group will go bankrupt. But it's all worth it. Crystal resonance sequence, atomic manipulation unit, high-energy ion beam device. Jason went through Skynet and slowly counted. Can the lifespan of these Skynet devices achieve the expected results? Jason asked while looking at the list in front of him. Master, we can achieve the desired results. It's just that because the material strength and fatigue limit are limited, it needs to be replaced frequently. We need stronger synthesis materials. Skynet reported meticulously. Jason nodded. Enough. With the development of technology, we will have enough excellent materials. Jason seemed calm, but in fact he was constantly wailing in his heart. If he hadn't seen the material in the document, he would never have been so gloomy. Look at what people are using. The Planet Forge uses the core pressure of the entire planet to forge materials. Floating mining ships mine minerals directly on small stars. The star core drill directly mines the materials in the star core of the wilderness planet. In addition to these, there are many equipments that he can't even imagine. Look at the things in your hands, and then look at the things in the data. He could only be jealous of the separation. After calming down my emotions, I continued my inventory. After counting all the equipment, Jason sent him to the automatic assembly factory for assembly. This step is not difficult at all and is very fast. Wait until Jason has finished dinner. A silver white metal device more than 4 meters tall that looks like a donut has been delivered to his laboratory. Test it and see if there's anything wrong with it. Jason burped and said to Skynet. Several small drones flew up. Several beams of light hit the machinery. The inspection was completed, the assembly was perfect, and there was no interruption in the path. Tianwang replied concisely and concisely. Okay, start supplying energy. Jason entered the safety control room and started giving orders directly. Jason finished. A mechanical armor held a few bucket-thick wires and pulled them over. Directly connected together. The reactor is in fully powered mode, ready to connect to another reactor at any time. Jason directed again. The energy consumption of the space folding device is very scary. Otherwise, 5 highest level function wires are needed for power supply. To avoid accidents, he even prepared a second reactor. I'm just afraid of not having enough energy. Following Jason's order, the reactor behind him began to roar, and there was a strange smell in the air. The reactor was operating to its limits. a normal phenomenon that occurs when the internal electric current ionizes the air. Soon, the energy in the reactor reaches a threshold. The lights above the reactor began to flash wildly. Start connecting the energy and prepare to start, Jason ordered. The switch on the cable is turned on. The electric current flows directly into the space folding device. A blue transparent light suddenly flashed on the silver-white ring. There seemed to be 2 more circles of red lights on the torus. Immediate follower. A light blue light appeared in the center of the ring. Then start clockwise and pretend to understand. The entire laboratory began to glow blue. Jason's face was filled with surprise when he saw this scene. Reaching this step means you have succeeded. It was indeed as expected. After a moment, the blue light in the ring was distorted. It's like there's something there. Jason knew that was a sign that space was successfully distorted. Skynet, detect the physical constants there. Detect energy fluctuations. Start turning in the experimental equipment. The experiment is successful enough to perform space folding. Jason gave orders. His eyes were fixed on the manipulator next to the machine. The manipulator is placing a metal device into the space distortion in the middle. Soon, Jason saw a magical scene. The more than 20 centimeters of detection device was put in. It was like passing through a layer of water in midair. Jason only saw a ripple in the air. The device becomes like a Rubik's Cube. File size. Jason's face was overjoyed. Quick, check the parameters passed out. Try to adjust the spatial folding ratio. Testing whether living creatures can enter. Jason spoke out another order. The cages for the live animals were also brought up. Unfortunately, it is exactly as described in the technical information. The poor rabbit was cut into half. The half that was sent into the equipment directly turned into tiny elementary particles. Record. Space folding device, whether there is any difference in high energy vibration frequency. It is extremely lethal, and organic matter cannot survive. Point 0. The possibility of making it into a weapon can be considered. As Jason spoke, he asked Skynet to record his observations. Soon the experimental data was almost collected. Skynet, shut down. Look at how much energy is being used. Master, I'm afraid the reactor needs to replace its energy core. Skynet's voice was also unusually helpless. Jason Company even became twisted. This is a very large reactor. Can power the entire Gotham City for a month. The power is out. Jason almost vomited blood. No wonder people invented this kind of thing after their civilization has developed to that extent. Just this energy consumption. It is not something that lower civilizations can afford. Fortunately, this effect is solidified. It only takes this once. Otherwise he would have to vomit blood. Jason suddenly felt envious of the Ancient One and his group of magicians. The educational level of these people is probably not as good as that of an ordinary college student. But controlling space is like playing. It doesn't consume energy. This made Jason envious of his separation. No wonder Comrade Modu, the chief disciple of Ancient One, was Blacken. Once said, the world is like this because there are too many magicians. Now it seems that is indeed the case. It's something that a scientist like him can do with so much effort. People just chanted a mantra and it was done. Doesn't this destroy the balance? Magicians should disappear. Jason muttered a few words with sadness. Chapter 55. The core of the sub-dimensional energy manipulation device. In fact, it is a space folding device. After completing this part, Jason's task has actually been completed. The rest is repetitive work. Just need to make another gravity operating device. Had a cup of coffee. Jason started his F-King again. And just when Jason was building his own machine. In another part of Gotham, someone is also busy. Gotham is a city of prosperity and crime. Both the most prosperous and the darkest places in the world can be found in this city. Night. It's the darkest time in Gotham. Many people started their own ulterior transactions under the cover of night. And on the outskirts of Gotham, there is such a prosperous manor. At the moment, the manor was very lively, with countless upper-class people holding wine glasses, changing glasses. It looks like a peaceful and prosperous scene. At the top of the manor, 2 people, whose faces were hidden in the darkness, were having a conversation. Joker is dead. A man with a ruby brooch on his chest spoke. When the person sitting opposite him heard this, he picked up his wine glass and took a sip of red wine. He spoke in a very calm tone. Who did it? Wayne Group. said the man wearing the ruby brooch. Oh, it turns out to be that little guy Bruce, really. It's nice to be young. The man holding the red wine glass sighed and said, "We're missing a chess piece. Bruce Wayne has gone too far." The man wearing the ruby brooch said angrily, "You are too impatient, you are just a pawn. The benefits that Wayne Group has brought to us are far greater than this chess piece. I heard recently that Bruce Wayne's illegitimate son has come up with something amazing. That's a good thing for us. As for Bruce Wayne, he likes justice, so let him do it. We should be more tolerant towards young people, shouldn't we?" Shaking the red wine glass in his hand, the man said gently. The man wearing the ruby brooch was still a little depressed. "Humph, he didn't cause trouble in your territory. This month alone, he has caused me millions of dollars in losses. Bruce Wayne must be taught a lesson. Otherwise, he will feel that Batman has the final say in Gotham." The man wearing the ruby brooch said something viciously. "Then just send out a chess piece. Always give energetic young people something to do." The man holding the red wine glass said calmly. "Send out the claws. Teach him a tough lesson." The man wearing the ruby brooch had a fierce look in his eyes. "No, it's not yet time, the claws can't appear. We have a greater good with Bruce Wayne alive." The man holding the red wine glass shook his head. But, the man wearing the ruby brooch was still a little reluctant. "Enough. It's just a loss of millions. No big deal, we'll compensate you. But don't think about doing it again. As a newcomer, the first thing you have to do is understand the rules of the game." The man holding the red wine glass put down the glass, stared at the man opposite and said. The man with the ruby saw a fierce glint in his eyes. My heart palpitated. "All right, but you have to send a more powerful chess piece. Batman must be taught a lesson. It's natural. Let's stimulate Dr. Victor. It just so happens that our organization is very interested in his skills. It's okay to let him cause some trouble for Batman." The man holding the red wine glass smiled and said. "Are you sure he can? He's just a scientist." The man wearing the ruby brooch asked doubtfully. "Definitely doable. Everyone has the potential to be a chess piece. We just need to inspire it. What's more, aren't you interested in Dr. Victor's cryonics technology?" After taking a sip of red wine, the man smiled and said. Hearing this, the man wearing the ruby brooch was also moved. "As long as we are human, we cannot escape death. If you could freeze yourself, waiting for the point where life extension technology becomes available. To them, there are huge amounts of temptation." Thinking of this, he no longer objected. "Well, that's him. Let's see if Dr. Victor can bring us enough surprises." Seeing the man agree, the man holding the red wine glass smiled with satisfaction. "Very good, I'll contact the people there to take action." After saying that, he took a sip of red wine again, with a smile on his face. The next day, there was a dispute in a private company's laboratory in Gotham. "Jim, you can't do this." Victor Fries, wearing a white coat, shouted angrily at Jim opposite. "I'm sorry, Victor. The company can no longer support your research. Obviously, your research does not bring enough benefits to our company. Although we are friends. But business is business. Okay, turn off the power." Jim ignored Victor's pleading and asked his men to turn off the power. At the same time, he directly took the USB flash drive and copied the laboratory information. "Victor, these things should be considered as compensation for the company." Jim smiled 800 times and walked out of the laboratory with the USB flash drive. "By the way, take good care of Dr. Victor. Let him pack his things." After saying that, Jim left the laboratory without any hesitation. Several security personnel looked at each other. Then proceed to cut off the power to the laboratory. "No, you can't do that." Dr. Victor rushed forward frantically, trying to stop the security personnel. "It's just that he, an experimenter, is no match for a big-bodied security guard. Easily thrown aside. Dr. Victor, be quiet. It would be bad if you get hurt." A security guard smiled. "Just unplugged the power supply." "No." Victor let out a wail of pain. The security personnel didn't take it seriously either. "I thought Victor was in so much pain because the laboratory was defunded." They didn't notice. Because the power is turned off. Behind them, huge amounts of white gas began to leak from a metal tank. Then it quickly spread from the laboratory. Several security personnel did not move. It was directly frozen into an ice sculpture by the white gas. The smile even stayed on his face. On the other hand, Dr. Victor was kneeling on the ground. Not only did it not turn into an ice sculpture, the body was still absorbing the white mist, and the skin became pale, like a dead man. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.